A couple of weeks ago, we had a competition to find out who knew their way to Woodstock. Hundreds of people knew where it was, but then thousands didn't. The two who would have found their way best were Lynn Davidson from South Mildura and Jacques Jennings from Balmain in Sydney, and they won the albums. Woodstock was a lot more than a place on the map. It became a temporary city and developed into a permanent way of life.
By the way that you treat me and all.
It was to be a 3-day festival of music and art. It became the emergence of a new nation in America, the nation of the peaceful young. The Woodstock Music and Art Fair was put on film by Michael Wadley.
All over America and all over the world, of course, the authorities are prohibiting the concerts because in America, of course, they feel that they're communist breeding grounds, breeding anti-American feeling, spreading dope and drug addiction and nudity and, you know, all kinds of things like that. And therefore, they forbid the festivals. But when the festivals have come off, if the police show some restraint and judgment, why, the kids don't generate any violence, and they have a good time. And as a matter of fact, nothing harmful really happened.
They called Woodstock, 3 days of peace and music. It was like setting off on a weekend. We used to throw a tarp in there and a couple of bananas and take off.
I know I have forgotten maybe one or two, but I hope that I recall them all before the babies do. And I know he'll have a question or two. Like, hey, Tom, can I go ride my Zoom that goes 200 miles an hour?
As you may have heard, there were 500,000 people there, and we're told by the Highway Patrol that 1 million people started out for the place. They closed the New York State Thruway, and 500,000 people had to turn back. They just simply couldn't get there.
And I must be permissive, understanding of the younger generation. Then I'll know that all I've learned my kid assumes, and all my deepest worries must be his cartoons. And still I'll try to tell him all the things I've done, relating to what he can do when he becomes a man.
They had, dozens and dozens of helicopters, which flew in everything, from our film to bedrolls to medical supplies, and, including the performers, of course. And, they couldn't believe it. They really couldn't believe it. They'd fly in and see this, unbelievable sea of ants down below. But then they'd get out on the stage and they'd say, ladies and gentlemen, and, back at them, this huge volume of voices. And that was what mattered, I mean, there were some of the greatest performances by those groups ever. I mean, everybody got turned on by the event, including the cameraman.
Hey, look yonder, tell me what's that you see? Marching to the fields of Concord. Looks like handsome Johnny with his flintlock in his hand, marching to the Concord War. Hey, marching to the Concord War.
Did you have any trouble with performing rights for any of the people appearing in the film? Are there any people at the festival you couldn't show?
Absolutely none. There were 36 groups at the festival, and I had an extremely good contract with the producers of the festival, which guaranteed that whatever groups I selected for the film had to be bought and put into the film. And the selection was mine entirely. What you see, unfortunately, you're at the mercy of my own judgment. But I wasn't pressured to put anyone in, and in fact, as I'm sure you could imagine, everyone wanted to be in the film because it was such a big event. It's going to go down in history. It already has.
Do the performers themselves get money from the film?
No, everyone was paid strictly on a salary basis or on a fee basis. But they were certainly all paid for, not only for the film, but of course for their appearance at the festival.
As far as performances, do you have a particular favorite?
Hendrix, without a doubt. For a couple of reasons. First of all, he's got to be the greatest guitarist playing right now. And secondly, the seriousness of his music. He plays the American national anthem, and almost the hallmark of a whole generation of people, the Woodstock generation perhaps, is a kind of wide, broad attack on America, you know, not just Vietnam and Cambodia, not just supporting the black problem, but the mores, you know, the spirit, the my country first attitude, flag waving, you know, nationalism and all that. These kids, these students, just, and myself, simply did not approve of this kind of, you know, unilateral devotion, you know, mindlessness that seems to keep people like Nixon in office.
They started on these really well-organized plans of having, Joan Baez will go on at 8 o'clock, and Richie Havens will go on at 3, and so on, and we'll finish up at 1 o'clock at night. Well, of course, that quickly went out the window. Groups got so turned on by the crowds and everything else that they literally were finishing their night's concerts at 10 a.m., and they began again at 1. For 3 days, it was quit at 10, begin again at 1, so that we'd come back at 10 o'clock in the morning. We would stagger back to the tents and the trucks and lay down for a few hours sleep. Of course, it was really nice to eat and work at the same spot.
I think that rock music is still considered to be, before Woodstock, in America, rock music was considered to be a very small interest music, you know. But what we all know, of course, is that especially in America and Europe, rock has become the music not just of teenagers, but 20 and 30-year-old people, and the number is just growing all the time. One of the characteristics that you see in the film is that the lyrics have become very, very important in music, and hence more people are interested. It's no longer just the beat. Well, that accounts for some of the interest. That accounts for the fact that a lot of people came to Woodstock. But the other thing is that there's a big movement away from cities, and after all, the concert was held on a giant farm, big, huge farm in rural New York State. And I think a lot of the attraction was going camping, you know, getting out into the country, swim and bathe and so on.
Your film of the festival and everything that took place there has been called by Time magazine possibly one of the best American documentaries ever made. How do you feel about that an establishment magazine should seize on a documentary of it as being an outstanding example?
Well, the same way that I feel about other Time policies. I mean, it is fantastic how magazines like Time and Life and Newsweek are just, you know, supporting the students and the black movement, you know, like right down the line, 100%, and every week, you know, editorialize even in their news coverage against Nixon and the administration. And I think that's all part of their policy. You know, they're just throwing me in with a whole lot, you see.
Are you surprised then that in Australia there is censorship of this film?
I couldn't believe it. I still don't know. I haven't gotten the rundown on what all has been cut out, but I've heard that, unbelievably, I've never even heard of an album being censored, but I understand they've even censored the album. You know, I've been told now by people in the movie industry that Australia is even worse in censorship than South Africa, you know, if you can believe that. Maybe you all can, I don't know. But it just staggers the mind.
Find us out what we are not now.